Okay, cool.
I'll send you the link after I.
After I upload it.
All right. Yeah. Wait, the ask in the file share.
Right?
Okay, downloading it.
All right, 1 second. Make sure. Okay, I'm good to go. I'm gonna mute myself and then you can start.
Is my opponent good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Alright. I'll also keep like a local recording in case my Wi-Fi goes out, if that's fine with everyone.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Alright. Alright, let me get it pulled up. Alright, I'll start right now. First is disclosure. Interpretation. Debaters must disclose all constructed speech documents open source with highlighting on the 2021 to 2022 NDCALD wiki within an hour after debating. Violation screenshot attached shows no school. WCTRLF. Debate resource inequities. You'll see people steal cars, that's good. It's the only way to truly level the playing field for students such as novices and underprivileged programs. Evidence ethics. Open source is the only way to verify beforehand that cards aren't miscut. Otherwise, it could have highlighted unethically. That's a voter. Maintaining ethical evidence practices is key to good academics, so we should be able to verify that you didn't cheat. Fairness is a voter. It's constitutive of any competitive activity based on skills, wins, and losses. Unfair practices skew the judge's ability to determine the better debater. Talk to the debater to set the norm. If you lose, you'll open source from now on. Committing interpretation. Reasonability is arbitrary and begs the question of what's reasonable, requiring judge intervention. No argument. You shouldn't win for being fair, and people will obey. Theory. Framing. The standard is maximizing expected well-being. Extinction outweighs incomes first. That's point 15. Reducing existential risk is the most important thing in the whole world. So many people could exist in the future, trillions upon trillions. Reducing existential risk is the most important thing, even if the well-being of these possible people are only given 0.001% as much weight. We should also take into account moral uncertainty, even if we don't sure that 1% of well-being matters. From moral uncertainty, reducing existential risk is the most important thing in the world. All minimally plausible worldviews would converge. I would try to save the world. Pleasure and pain are intrinsic values in its values. It's Blum et al. 18. Pleasure defines rewards. We don't have a particular similar rewarding due to pleasure. Pleasure prize is based on our dynamic theories. We are attracted by rewards because they are enjoyable. Organisms are a result of evolutionary competition. Rewards increase evolutionary fitness. That is why food, drinks, mates, and offspring are rewarding. Many brain regions modulate pleasure produce the opposite, liking something represented by regions in the limbic system. Differential expressions associated with pleasure systems. Researchers examine neural tissue. There was a remarkable contrast in neuropathies. Area of the brain more developed in humans. TH responsible for production of dopamine. Dopamine plays a role in the ability to pursue rewards that are years away. We are from the resolution. Africa. New investments are coming and companies are launching. Economic incentives make it alluring, referring to mining. Tosar 20. They're not space mining companies which have already launched satellites to test its patents. Other companies are attracting millions of dollars of private investment of a possible future space. This is the technology to harvest our asteroid exists. We are dependent on rare earth elements which are expensive on Earth and come with a high environmental cost, so these make it profitable to travel to asteroids. Africa mining is growing despite hindrances. It's critical for the African economy, but space mining decks it. That's only 19. Africa has the most abundant reserves. Africa hosts 30% of the world reserve. Mining is consistently rising across Africa. It's good news for Africa. That's mining companies are beginning to expand operations and also attract more investors. With astro mining, one might want to ask if it is good for news for the African continent. Astro mining processes are mouth-watering. A single 30-meter asteroid would contain $30 billion in platinum. A 500-meter rock can contain half the entire world's resources. It will severely affect the precious metals market. Minerals that are somewhat scarce on Earth will be easily accessible on asteroids. Reports say that many African countries are dangerously dependent on mining activities. Economic decline means Africa war. That's Sophels in 17. Wars are more frequent in low-income countries. Studies find that poverty and inadequate economic development increase the risk of conflict. Research have examined the correlation between low GDP and conflict. Variations of poverty have determined locations where conflict breaks out. Perceptions surrounding the quality of institutions and unemployment are more closely linked to reasons for fighting poverty. Predict the inscription of Sierra Leone's civil war lured the poor in the dispute in Nigeria. The database consists of 35 African countries. The high levels of poverty were linked to increases in conflict. Poverty increases the risk of conflict. The connection between low income and the risk of conflict is one of the most robust findings. Poor countries experience more conflict and create pockets for insurgents. Africa goes nuclear. That brings in the Middle East terrorism and nuclear power. That's me 13. The question is whether the destructive dynamic will continue to create millions of more victims in Africa. There's potential for this huge destructive conflict across Africa is very real. The potential for new conflicts on the scale of the wars of the 20th century is very much with us today. These wars spread. They start in places we don't care about, but they spread places that we do care about. The waves of instability in a very place triggers problems. Waves of instability and insurgency threaten to rip nuclear armed Pakistan apart, trigger wider conflict. Terrorism and conflict set to complicate security for allies in Europe. Africa is of more importance to American security than between Africa and the Middle East is a soft and weak states. Ideal petri dishes for Al-Qaeda type groups, networks of funds, fighters, training, and weapons from the Middle East. Nuclear war means extinction. That's Germinal 13. Using even a small percent of the world's nuclear weapons, around 2 billion people. Nuclear will alter the climate. Agriculture, threatening 1/4 of the world's population. Of famine and corn and rice production would severely decline. Food supplies will lead to further insecurity. Crops will be impacted because of the black carbon particles causing cooling temperatures, decreased precipitation, and decline solar radiation. With the war between the U.S. and Russia, talking about the extinction of the human race. Russia. Deep space exploration is a shared goal that prevents escalation of U.S.-Russia tensions, but privatization threatens are independent of our other internal links. That's CSI is 18. Space is our best opportunity to dialogue when everything else falls apart. U.S. and Russia support collaborating on deep space exploration. Growth of the private sector may also the economic arrangement between U.S. and Russia lower the benefits of cooperation. If NASA and Roscosmos don't need to talk, they won't. Space missions prove vital for cooperation between U.S. and Russia. Biden and Putin already know, and the first tests have already been made. Luxembourg 21. 30 years at the end of the Cold War, amid sharply rising tensions between Washington and Moscow, Space Marines and rear field of cooperation, U.S. depend on Russia to deliver astronauts to the ISS. Russia to extend its space cooperation agreement with the U.S. until 2030. Biden administration has continued to look ways to reduce tensions. Space fits the bill perfectly. There's a mutual interest for us to cooperate for our people, also the world. For those going inside and scientists watching from the outside, stakes are still high. The International Cruise Series 21 likely reflects the space cruise of the future. It's make or break for the relationship. Ukraine's decline of U.S. authority puts us at the brink of war. That's Wire 13. A growing sense of Moscow should Russia consider abandoning hopes of reconciliation. Things are at rock bottom of spike in violent incidents. Should Russian military buildup, strong U.S. and NATO affirmations. Zelensky appeals to exploit Ukraine's membership to describe the red line that lead to war. They will fight to defend the two rival republics. This is a very desperate situation. Chinese were cautious about an anti-Western alliance. We're hearing a new tone from them now. Tensions in the war will go nuclear. That's Morrow and Trevelyan 21. Russia forced to deploy intermediate-range nuclear missiles in Europe in response race and new arms buildup. With tensions at their worst, Russia would be forced to act. We lead Russia to respond with military technology. Russia development of a cruise missile, the Screwdriver. Russia has already deployed this. We will see Russia deploy the Screwdriver missile in a comparison between the current tensions and the Cuban Missile Crisis. It had NATO closer to redeploying intermediate-range missiles. Russia had a complete lack of trust. Nuke war causes extinction and won't stay limited. That's Edward 17. The climactic effects were the catastrophic temperatures of 12 degrees Fahrenheit, smoke and dust will darken the atmosphere to inhibit photosynthesis. Effects similar to that of a giant meteor responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs. Would it be the dinosaurs who are closer to nuclear war since the early 1960s? It is unlikely that any extinction would stay limited. Debris. Currently, entrepreneurs are pushing for privatization of space travel with increasing success. As Thompson 20. NASA will pay Musk $2.6 billion to ferry astronauts to the space station. Private sector activity in space is accelerating dramatically. New space entrepreneurs are beginning to launch to a flood dependent of fast mobile signals and manufacture products in zero gravity substances that can't be made in Earth's gravity. Officials have touted the idea of privatizing the $100 billion space station itself, the biggest privatization America has ever conducted. Incoming mega constellations of private satellites uniquely ensure unmanageable space debris, triggering the Kessler syndrome. Volume virus 21. Companies with mega constellations of satellites, the number in LEO has increased by 50%. SpaceX added 11,000 has already fired for another 30,000 large satellites to increase the risk of space debris. Thousands will provide considerable mass which break upon collisions of degradation. Fragmentations increase collision probability per time. Collisions can dominate a situation called the Kessler effect. I'll cut the card there. That's time. So I got to debris, the Bali and Byers 21 card. Stop at the Kessler syndrome, or a situation called the Kessler syndrome. And I didn't read anything after that. I'm good for cross.
Sorry, where did you cut your card at?
Let's see. I cut it at a situation called the Kessler syndrome.
So you didn't read Kessler syndrome ensures devastation?
I think I wait. Oh, no, I didn't read that. I didn't read Dvorsky 15.
Okay. Judge, you good? Alright. So you run this like disclosure theory, and so you say that I will have to disclose my neck case 30 minutes before the round. Like, I thought I was supposed to like, so it's because I'll be doing case responses. So I was trying to like post my stuff like after the speech. So if that makes sense.
Our specific interpretation is on like you have to disclose your constructive speech documents with highlighting on the 2021-2022 NDCA LD Wiki.
Well, the screenshot doesn't even show like my name, like, but that's not the case. But like the point I'm trying to make is that like so you want me to like post it on the wiki?
Yeah, we're saying you should disclose your constructive speech docs on the wiki, especially since.
Yeah, but that isn't complete because I didn't have because I need to hear what your case is to write the responses and then post the full thing, right?
No, we're saying like your past cases on this topic.
No, this is my first. This is the first tournament my first tournament on the topic, so I'm confused.
Yeah, but like in the tournament, you've negated before, right?
No, because you're talking about this single topic, right?
Yeah, but have you negated?
This is my first tournament on this topic.
Okay, yeah, but like
so I don't have any previous like neg cases, so I'm.
No, but like
go to the Africa. How does that not support our side? Because it seems to be talking about Africa mining, and it says that private space mining sexist. So isn't that, or Dexit? Isn't that like, how does that not support our side?
We're saying that basically space mining will reduce the mining in Africa because of how incentivized it is to go mine in space instead. Also, the potential to mine in space. We're saying like that, like companies, that private space or like private mining companies, which are currently investing in Africa, currently like supporting and upholding its the African economy, of the continent in general, which is critical, like the mining economy in
Okay,
Africa.
sorry. Never mind. I thought it says checks. Never mind. It says decks. All right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Russia advantage. Uh, so it says deep space exploration is a shared goal that prevents escalation of U.S.-Russia tension. Like, where does it say in the evidence that currently U.S. and Russia are cooperating in like space exploration?
That's okay. Wait, are you talking about a CSIS 18 card?
Yeah.
Well, specifically, it does talk about the how. Okay, this card mostly like I think talks about how privatization alters the economic arrangement between U.S. and Russia, insofar as that it prevents negotiations and like cooperations with each other, insofar as they don't need to talk to each other because they can
All right.
rely on private. Our other card talks about how they've cooperated in the past and like currently.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
Okay. I'll send the one and see.
do you know how many?
Sorry, Judge. I was just kind of confused on the disclosure thing that he was running because this is like my first tournament on this topic, so I didn't like know that I'd post my case on there, the wiki, since I thought like it was after like the 1AC speech that after like I like listened to the speech and then I have like case responses and then I post a whole thing.
Yeah,
So
y'all,
I'm kind of
y'all just debate it out, and we'll talk about it after round. I'm not going to give
Okay.
advice in the middle of the round.
cool. All right, it's in there.
I'm ready. You can start your speech when you are.
Okay. First off, the Canada and the Committee on the Peaceful Use of Outer Space ought to establish an application system for property rights on celestial bodies. Application and approval of property rights should be granted upon the condition of application must be publicly announced that property rights will be made tradable between private entities. Property rights will be said to expire on the conclusion of a successful extraction mission. Private entities will only be allowed one property right grant per celestial body and cannot have more than one grant at a time. Ban the militarization of outer space. This solves both their Russian advantage. The counterplan established an international norms for safe extraction of resources on celestial bodies while increasing R&D in outer space. Step in 21. Data in the celestial body value for future generation. International body administered rights of companies for mining rights. Applied application public expires after preset period. Published in a mining rights grant. Exclusive mining rights to specific body are tradable. International body acts as a court of rights register comparable to patent law. Boost research on celestial bodies and matched by a pure government approach leads to partnership. Provided funding, R&D grants, public-private partnership. Exploration from a tailor mission to a standard task leads to a cost reduction and certain information not lost for future generations. Prospecting takes place without application. Dispersing of the spacecraft benefits sustainable trust, building deterrence, deep space prevented by reduction of exploration, application for rights by one at a time, preventing collision of source of debris creation mitigated, the continuous change in an orbit of asteroid make a redirect attempt with hostile tenant identifiable to turn aggressive the database and provide catalog asteroids and mining tracked closely and avoid mishaps. No need to ban regulations solves the entire solves the app. Next is the tech disad. Strong commercial space catalyzes tech innovation progress at the margins and spin-off tech change global information networks. Hansen 17. A growing space economy will open opportunities for tech. The environment of outer space help incentivize progress, extension of development experimenters and testers, increase in innovation. Tech developments from outer space have been applied to terrestrial life. As more companies pursue their space goals, more innovations will come from the commercial sector, provide a new perspective. Even if they claim that they don't defend implementation, that this has still disproves the desirability of the app, indicating that the app's normative statement is that short innovation cycles means every contract counts. Client 19. Because of the short innovation cycle in a high competitive sector with tight margins, those unable to innovate quickly will be out of business soon. The tech innovation solves every existential threat. Cumulative extinction events outweigh the app. Matthews 18. Hundreds of thousands of times extinction part of a complement broad. Try to keep civilization running as best as they can with potential best things for our future innovators and incentives and norms. Technology good. indigenous nation make use of satellite data incorporating into indigenous culture native views from space. 3. The Native American aimed at improving resource management, agriculture, and economic development and education through the use of NASA data. More than 30 tribal colleagues and universities around the country are involved in the project. A major goal of the native views is effectively merged with Western science and with Native American culture. Reverence and knowledge for the land is ingrained in tribal spirituality. Next, the mining. Commercial ester mining is coming now. Lower costs and improving tech make it economically viable, and the legal basis is already in place in multiple countries that helps acquire water for rocket fuel and rare earth metals. Gilbert 21. Space is back in front and center. Mining on the asteroids is beginning commercial space mining virtually unlimited, creating a legal infrastructure for mining for mineral exploitation incredibly valuable. Rare earth metals, rocket propellants, rare earth metals, potential targets required for electronics, and they must bottlenecks in making the transition from fossil fuel to the renewable backed up by battery shortages. However, the legal framework that strikes best balance of providing economic incentives for mining while preventing unbeneficial land claims requires a doctrine of appropriation. The plan prevents that. Myers 15. The doctrine of appropriation easily be applied to asteroid mining, astronomical costs, not overly burdensome to corporate interests, satisfied economic imperative of promoting the rapid development of asteroid resources. Extremely beneficial to mankind as source of resource for off locations and space appropriation incentivizes the development of space in a way that reflects the needs of society without vesting in absolute monopoly. After mining offsets terrestrial growth that grooms the environment and enables solar power satellites, but both solves climate change. Title 19. The major problems of the mountain, the dead, and will implode the industrial growth off of a world where it can't do any more harm to the biosphere. The climate change fixed solar power satellites. It's always double high noon. Over 1,000 times more power than the largest solar farm currently in existence, completely replace human civilization power infrastructure to millions of tons of infrastructure materials. Asteroid mining can place it there. Asteroid mining solves rare earth metal depletion, which prevents tech stagnation and sustainable resource extraction. Metal 20. Produce electronic component, platinum and lithium falls under the rare earth category. Rare earth category. Environmental damage would allow for mining operations to destroy the entire asteroid with no repercussion, provide humanity resources needs for millions of years. Both of those cause extinction. Bill 19. Countless and new process and inedible result of human intelligence overuse of resources for immediate human benefit risk longer in terms of negative influence and deforestation taken soon to resolve the crisis for the sake of future generation. Critical versatility and tech will even help us to prevent species extinction events that otherwise destroy our Earth altogether. The counterplan solves the Africa and the Russia scenario, but let's also move on to debris. No debris collision. Albert 16. Gravity dramatizes the issue of articles in it are exaggerated and misleading. All articles are exaggerated and misleading. Space debris and collisions certainly is not a crisis. There has been 11 collisions, 1,300 functioning satellites, and 500,000 total objects, and fewer than 15 collisions. Why do people worry? Second is debris growth go down. Wall 19. We can stave off the Kessel syndrome if builders follow simple rules. SSC guidelines that arise and plans provide opportunity to expand the debris mitigation. Stakeholders endorse the new guidelines, and there are big names in that group. You're seeing operators being practiced. And for disclosure, my opponent ran the theory and took a screenshot, and the screenshot doesn't even have my school in it, so that's the first I don't get what this is. But second, I thought I was supposed to be after the net construction and after I listened to the 1AC that I will be writing the case responses, and then I'll be posting it on the wiki, and it's in the file share anyway, so you can just take a look at it. So yeah, so I don't know what their disclosure theory is all about. And I'm good for cross.
All right. That sounds good. Let me get timer set up. 3 minutes starting now. All right. What's the net benefit of the counterplan?
The net benefit of the counterplan is that it solves the AF. First is the regulation that it will sit on, because first it bans the militarization of outer space, so this reduces tension for U.S. and Russia. And second, there's the regulations. It says that the property rights will be made tradable between private entities, so there's no secrets. Everybody will all the applications will be publicly announced so that there's no like secrets going on between each organizations. And also, the property rights will be set to expire on a conclusion of successful extraction missions. So only one property right grant per celestial body, and they cannot have more than one grant at a time. So only one like single entity can go and go appropriate space at a time.
Okay. I guess, oh yeah, I guess just on disclosure, what's your school name then?
So it's kind of complicated. My high school is Crean Lutheran, but I'm registered through LNU, which is a outside like academy kind of um debate organization for this tournament.
Okay, so on there, could you disclose your cases for rounds 1, 2, and 3 on like that wiki?
Sorry, what?
On the LNU wiki, did you disclose your first like the cases you read for the first 3 rounds of this tournament?
No, and I think you're the only like person that ran disclosures, so
Okay.
I didn't. Well, at least all I know is that I was supposed to like file share like my speech doc with the case
Yeah.
at the end. So
Yeah, that sounds good. So how does your counterplan solve our Russia advantage actually first?
well, first is through the 7-part regulatory system, which maintains peace and space. Um, that solves for U.S. and Russia because there won't be like tension in space as will be like
Oh,
rules involved and
yeah,
like
so that's good. So how does it promote peace?
yeah, what I just said, like it bans the militarization of outer space. So
Oh,
currently the state of like this current state of space is peaceful, but um you make not like appropriating space will make it like not peaceful.
okay. Uh, I don't think I have any more questions. All right, that's time. I think it's 5 minutes for this tournament, right? Of prep.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll take 2. I might end up taking more, but I'll inform you on that. I'll start now. All right. That's time. I'll put the doc in the file share. Alright, I think the doc should be in the file share. Y'all let me know when y'all get that. Let me get the order. Let's see. I guess order will just be disclosure. We'll do debris. Yeah, actually, yeah. Disclosure, quick overview on Africa and Russia, and then debris, and then just the neg is just counterplan innovation mining. So just top down.
All right, I'm ready.
Is my opponent good?
Yeah.
Alright, 4 minutes. I'll start now. They conceded the violation in cross-examination that they have not disclosed even on their LNU wiki, which means that there's a very clear violation of the shell right here. And even then, they claim that they don't understand the shell. But like what we're talking about is that in past rounds, you've already debated in round 1, 2, and 3 at Peninsula. At this debate tournament at Peninsula, you have to disclose we're saying that you have to disclose the constructive speech documents for those past rounds, specifically that you've already negated before in the past. You have to disclose. I say that you should have to disclose those specific rounds, constructive speech documents I use for those rounds, because first is like the debate resource inequalities, that by disclosing these constructive speeches, you're allowing for people to look at your cases, understand positions better, and level the playing field for like novices and other people in other like underprivileged programs. And second is evidence ethics, because like sending the doc in round does nothing because we don't have enough time to check through your evidence, so we aren't able to verify your evidence. And open source is the only way that we're able to verify before rounds that your cards aren't miscut, and that's a voter. Maintaining ethical evidence practices is key to good academics, and you should drop the debater because this will set the norm. They'll definitely open source from now, and they'll understand it better if you drop the debater. And they have to offer competing interpretation. They don't offer competing interpretation of like no disclosure and whatnot. So you can already, even if they like make some arguments on disclosure, it doesn't matter because they have to have offer a separate model of debate. Otherwise, this is the only model of debate that we have, in which case we default to it. Moving on to Africa. So quick extension of Africa. Basically, what we're saying is that privatization will result in all like the current terrestrial miners to move to space mining and asteroid mining, which will result in decking the African mining economy because no one's going to mine there anymore. There's less investment there, and it'll deck their economy. And African economy collapse turns to new war, which goes nuclear into that. It brings in like Russia, or not Russia, but like it brings in the Middle East, and there's a fine line between them. And it also brings in nuclear powers, and this will ultimately result in nuclear war, which means extinction onto the Russia scenario, which is basically talking about at the moment we're at the brink of war. You're seeing it in the news, especially with the Ukraine scenario and how tensions are currently rising. It's the second Cuban Missile Crisis, insofar as we're at the brink of nuclear war, and that space cooperation is critical, but privatization hurts it because it doesn't allow Russia and like U.S. to talk with each other and negotiate and cooperate on space. Rather, it just pushes them to go find other private sector like companies to go to instead of each other, and that triggers impact. That's extinction that always onto debris. They claim that like there's no collision and that debris is down right now, but sure. But the fact is that debris exponentially increases over time, insofar as that debris collides with each other and produces more debris. And the fact that you send more stuff will result in it exponentially spiraling out of control. So the Kessler syndrome is still impacted here, so they don't get any defense on that. Onto the counterplan. All the counterplan does, sure, we can actually, first is perm, we can sure do the AF and also ban militarization that like solves back for any net benefit of the counterplan there while militarization. And second, they completely misunderstand our advantages. The counterplan solves nothing because first, you're still allowing for space mining and still allowing for resource extraction in space. It doesn't matter if it's safe or not. What matters is that it decentralizes people from mining in Africa and instead going to space mining, which still triggers the impact to our advantage. And even then, they misunderstand the Russia contention or Russia advantage, because Russia advantage talks about why the U.S. and Russia have to collaborate with each other. But if you're still allowing for private appropriation of space, they're going to go to these private companies instead of collaborating with each other, negotiating with each other. They're going to go to these other private space companies because they have no incentive to collaborate with each other, since they could just go to these other private space companies for like incentivized reasons, like for economically and financially and whatnot. And this will result in less collaboration and less cooperation that results in doing nothing to stop the current buildup of tensions that will ultimately result in nuclear war. So literally the counterplan does nothing. They misunderstand our advantages, and the impacts are still triggered. It doesn't matter whether like you have space extraction or resources. The very fact that you allow for resource extraction in space results in linking into the African advantage, and they do nothing to solve, like even it isn't just space militarization, but rather that we are not able to collaborate with Russia. That is the link. On to innovation. So basically, there's no uniqueness card here. Basically, innovation is high. Like, the innovation could be really high right now, so the app won't deck it. So they get no uniqueness here. Public space can still create innovation as well. There's no argument as to why it can. They're completely losing the time frame on their impact, because Matthews 18 just talks about why innovation is good as a backup and failsafe for future possible scenarios like climate or whatever, or like AI. And so there's basically no immediate impact to this. On mining, basically, they just link to Africa advantage, and they don't. I wasn't able to read any of the cards on that. So yeah. So yeah, the cards I sent away I didn't have enough time to read, but oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So you didn't read any cards then?
Yeah, no cards. I didn't have no time.
Okay. I'll spend the rest of my prep. Okay, I sent a doc. I have like 30 seconds left. Just gonna go. It's round 4, 2 and 3. So its order is going to be permutation, answer to the permutation, and then case, and then voters. Okay.
I'm ready.
Is my opponent ready?
Yeah, just finish opening it. I'm good.
Okay. First, on the permutation, the counterplan is competitive because you cannot have private entities agree with the regulation as well as appropriating space at their own time, at their own pace. They will have to follow the rules, and we know that the most private entities don't do that because they will destroy their incentives. This will be later addressed in the case debate. The app does not account for militarization and tension buildup, while the counterplan solves, which is a net benefit. Space law prevents space militarization and war, Loon 21. With a deep-rooted history of customary space law, peaceful exploration, commitment to cosmic peace and the space proved foundational, the Outer Space Treaty, similar to the Landmark and the Limited Test Ban Treaty and the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, optimized the success of international cooperation, mutual restraint, and prevented that weaponization of space during and after the Cold War, upholding space law guaranteed peace for over 60 years, a testament to the success of international space law. The CIL caps space conflict by banning ASATs, and perks prove that the strength of the CIL to limit weapons. Caldwell 9. International environmental law attempts to right in behaviors that damage the environment. The states have the responsibility to ensure that activities do not cause damage beyond jurisdiction. The responsibility to protect the environment has risen to the state. The status of binding the CIL, customary international environmental law. Embrace space, given the OSC and implicit structure that no country may subject to space to claims of sovereignty damage would include ASAT debris. The law would reach the government decision to test or use the ASAT. Environmental norms would apply to ASAT activities, and CIL rules are designed to be applicable during hostilities. Parallels between chemical weapons and the ASAT striking in both instances widely reviled weapons and earn a significant international opinion, with experts and the public considering it to be short-sighted and reprehensible. The CIL was stronger than in the ASAT case than for CW. More states have pursued and demonstrated CW capabilities and entered into a space weapons race. There were more deviations from the emerging anti-CW rule. If contested behavior and commentaries are suffice to engender CIL prohibition on CW, the world will likewise employ robust CIO mechanism to create a no ASAT taboo before a treaty appears. Space war causes world war and destroys the global economy and civilization, and prevents privatization of efforts by making space unusable forever. Jack Booth 20. Satellites provide communication, navigation, aviation, transportation, shipping, weather forecasting, and disarmament agreements. And space is a significant industry and an important catalyst for other industry. Without a conflict-free, peaceful space environment, benefit from space are impeded. Without space, life is not possible. There's an urgent need to preserve space. No one wins if the war into space. Effects will be global. Collateral damage will be worldwide. Space debris will linger for a millennium. Damage could be forever. Total chaotic gains made during the last 60 years could be washed away. Space war could end with a crippled economy, an inoperable infrastructure, and a planet, and go back to the industrial age. Therefore, extend the counterplan that solves for conflict through a 7-part regulatory system which maintains peace in space and boosts research and development in outer space through data disclosure, which companies will use specifically for mining rights by sharing them with the scientific community, since they have to publicly announce application, which is just a statement of intention to explore. This links to the tech DA, which will be triggered by the app by banning privatization and therefore halting tech development, which are essential to prevention of climate change. And on Russia, there's no space escalation, empirical de facto norms, and unpredictable consequences. Part 19. Despite decades of recurring prophecy of impending space war, no conflict has been broken out. Space domain has remained a puzzling peaceful. Only 9 countries launched space war have not been broken out, but because only the U.S. has the ability to fight one limited access of necessary, reduce the necessary the scenarios which escalate fragility of an attacker's after creation, de-escalate pressures long-standing, deeply ingrained into ways states perceive weaponization, push our boundaries created through legal reinforcement rather than opposition. ASAT cannot evade retaliation, imposes high cost on ASAT usage. Debris threatens the attacker's own assets, cascade effects constrain the attacker's long-term use of space. Second, the multiple complex factors make space war escalation obsolete. Handbook 17. Grounded hypothetical investing strategic surprise can be achieved if sufficient offensive space assets. Maintaining the security becomes difficult. A high probability they can be detected. Precise targeting will be required, and further military space operation becomes impossibly sustained. And on debris, there's no Kessler effect. Von Fitch 17. High AEO is where the Kessler syndrome can be an issue mid-orbit. It's so huge in the number of satellites, so few geo satellites here are moving in the same direction at the same speed. Worst case scenario, less than 1 in 10,000. We don't lose access. At its worst, prevents us in certain orbits over a volume. Less likely deorbit a few months. Low LEQR aren't an issue for Kessler's realistic. Worst case wouldn't have a huge effect. And on Africa, private entities are critical to exploring space. Private governments alone are not enough and don't have incentives. Ballman 17. Private companies have been generating a burgeoning industry. Multiple private companies making enough money on the market with high barriers and to enter with high barriers. Private entities are the only ones who can get the job done quickly and efficiently, and they are quickly surpassing the government. House or 17. We're starting to see advances made by private entities that are more significant than any advances made by the government. The government was never able to build never able to build. Not only are private companies that are already surpassing government, several are opposed to widen their lead in the coming month. Now, lastly, voters, you will vote based on the impact and magnitude of extinction. The Matthew 18 card, which is that tech innovation solves every existential threat. Cumulative extinction events outweigh the app. We solve two extinction scenarios through asteroid mining versus solar-powered satellites, which prevents climate change through reduced emissions, and that's Taylor 19. Second is current rare earth mineral depletion, which is solved through asteroid mining, preventing further mining of lithium on Earth that prevents intoxication of Earth. For all these reasons, I urge a negation ballot.
Alright, I'll take my remaining 3 minutes of prep, starting Alright, that was time. Order is no new doc. Order will just be disclosure. I guess I'll just go through Africa, Russia, debris, and then neg from top down. So counterplan, innovation, mining, but most of my time will be on disclosure. I'm not even sure if I'll get to like the neg side, but yeah. If everyone's good, I can start. Alright. If anyone's not ready, I will start. Oh shoot. Alright, I'll start right now. Your voting on disclosure is completely conceded in the 2 and our theory comes first because it's about out-of-round impact and it sets the foundations for how we should and should not debate and how the activity functions. Our interpretation is that they must disclose all constructive speech documents, open source highlighting on the 2021 to 2022 NDCA LD wiki in our after debating. It's very clear that they violated, even conceded in cross-examination, that they did not disclose for this terminal. We're saying that you disclose after your round, after you've already competed 3 times already at Peninsula, and there was another time you were on the negative side as well. We're saying that you should disclose your position after round your constructive speech documents, but you haven't, and you can see in the cross-examination that's a reason to vote. First is debate resource inequities. Impacts like thousands of debaters across the nations. It comes first because these debaters can get more resources through disclosure, and that outweighs any in-round offense. And also, evidence ethics, we aren't able to verify that your evidence in round. We have to do out of round through open source disclosure in order to actually have to like time to go through your cards. And we aren't able to verify your cards well enough, and that hijacks any fairness and education claims. And so far as you're completely voting on these issues, fairness as a voter, it's constitutive of any competitive activity on like wins, skills, losses. It's unfair practice to skew the ability to turn a better debater. We got the debater to set a norm. They'll open source from now on after they're able to understand it through the loss. And so yeah, this sets a norm. The open source from now on that and so in the future they won't have to hit the shell again. And competing interpretations, once again, they do not offer any kind of like competing interpretation. Therefore, you default on our interpretation because you have this is the only model of debate that you get in this round. Insofar as that you have to default to it, even if like they somehow disprove disclosure, you're still voting on it because they didn't provide any competing interpretation or counter interpretation as to what this model of debate should look like. Reasonability is arbitrary, begs the question what's reasonable, and that requires judge intervention as well. And no RVI. Yeah, you shouldn't win for being fair. We all have an obligation to debate, and people will debate theory, so you can already vote safely on disclosure. But even then, we'll go to, I guess, case. First, looking at like private is key to space exploration for Africa, but like this doesn't do anything. Okay, actually, before all that, like they bring a lot of new cards in the 2 and R, but you shouldn't like reject all those cards because no new 2 and R arguments. Insofar as that means that they can have like a whole 6-minute dump of new cards, and like that will completely destroy our 3-minute 2AR. But even though we'll start on Africa, insofar as it doesn't like answer our Africa advantage at all. Our advantage is about mining, not about space exploration. And Africa already outweighs any claim they have because it causes extinction and insofar as that outweighs any other impacts. And specifically on the Russia advantage, they say no space exploration, but once again, they misunderstand our Russia advantage. It's talking about collaboration, not space war or space escalation in space. It's talking about current tensions in Ukraine and in the Baltics right now, and that they have to be cooled down by space cooperation, but the next stops after privatization, and that results in nuke war and outweighs any kind of argumentation. Insofar as that we're completely winning time frame onto any of like their impacts of innovation, climate change, or like resource depletion. This is happening right now. We're seeing it in the news, obviously. Russia and Ukraine are at the brink of nuclear war, or like at least Russia and the West are at the brink of nuclear war, and like it's very clear that's the second Cuban Missile Crisis. This will happen immediately. We're outweighing on time frame. We're outweighing on probability because tensions are right now, and you can easily vote here as well.
All right, is everyone here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, 1 second. Let me pull this over. Okay. Okay, everything's good. Okay. My RFD was, I voted on disclosure. The 2NR didn't answer it, and the 2AR extended it well enough. I'll get into like the specifics of like what disclosure is and like why, like what the things are that you need to meet in the context of like LD later. But in terms of like specific feedback for the AF, you don't need to read multiple nuclear causes extinction cards in the 1AC. The 1AR was mostly fine. The only other main comment I have is to collapse in the 2AR, go for just Russia or Africa instead of both advantages and answer the counterplan. Spend more time answering the counterplan instead of extending both advantages, and obviously extend disclosure like you did. I'm not really that happy with like going for disclosure versus first tournament kids, because disclosure is not a written rule anywhere in terms of like in it. Well, I'm still gonna vote on it obviously, but I'm not like very happy with like people who read disclosure against like novices or people who haven't done like LD rounds before, because it's not like it's a written rule anywhere on NSDA, and there's literally no way for them to know like what the disclosure norm is. So like your interpretation seems to lead to a model of debate where every novice is guaranteed to lose one round no matter what, because they simply don't know what disclosure is unless they're rich enough to have a coach, or they're lucky enough to be on like a Discord or something where they know where people have told them what disclosure is. So like, yeah, I mean, it's fine, but it's kind of like a rude thing. It's kind of like a jerk thing to do, you know? Like, if you find out that someone is a novice, like, you should probably just, like, not go for it, except that you kind of, like, skewed their time, and I think you probably could have won on substance. But, like, I get it. It's strategic. You want to win rounds, so that's fine. The neg, I'll get into, like, what disclosure is, like, how to do it at the end, because it's, like, a little bit longer. But in terms of other comments, I know it's not malicious, but be careful not to clip on purpose. In case you don't know what clipping is, make sure you read all highlighted parts of the card. When you were in the 1NC, you were kind of skipping a little bit, and that some judges, I'm not necessarily one of those judges, but some judges are very aggressive about clipping. Like, they will immediately stop the round. They will immediately make you lose the round because they're like, it's an evidence ethics violation, so you're getting more evidence, you're getting more offense than you read, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure that you are, like, being careful when you, like, make sure that you're reading every part of the card that you've highlighted. And if you don't, if you end a card early, say cut the card here, and then say the word that you cut, right? So, like, cut the card at space weaponization, right? And then they'll know, like, to, on their doc, like, add some enters there. And then you can send a marked doc or something afterwards. So that's, like, one thing just to be wary of in the NC. Obviously, it wasn't a big deal in this round, but some judges can get very serious about it. Also, I don't know, based on the way you labeled your speech docs, Neg, I'm guessing you have some sort of like a policy background or something? Because you labeled like 2 NCs. Am I right in guessing that, or?
No.
Oh, okay. So basically, the thing with the 2NR, there are some events like policy where you can read a bunch of new cards in the second neg speech, right? Because it's like there's like 4 more speeches after, and it's still a constructive speech. In LD, you want to be wary with reading so many new cards. You can read new cards and new arguments in the 2NR, but they have to be responsive to a 1AR argument. If you're just dumping a bunch of like new 1NC impact scenarios, such as the counterplan is a unique net benefit of solving space weaponization, which the AF doesn't, which means we do it better and that prevents extinction. Like, this is a new argument that isn't really responsive to anything, and it's like the AF says, they only have 3 minutes to respond to it versus like your 6-minute speech, and generally the rebuttals are not for new arguments. It's like kind of commonly accepted that like that's not really as much of a thing in LD. Another thing is, do weighing on your args. So like when you're going for this disad, you need to like weigh you need to do more weighing. You just said like we have more extinction scenarios, which isn't really like that persuasive an argument. I guess it's okay, but like time frame, magnitude, probability. Why is like solving space weaponization or solving climate change uniquely more likely to happen than conventional weaponization in the Balkans and Russia, or African conflict escalating to weaponization? On substance, the main issue is, I think, the misunderstanding of the AF advantage that they point out. The AF advantage, neither of the AF conflict scenarios are about space weaponization. The AF conflict scenarios are about, they're pretty strategic, so I can see how easy, it's easy to get confused, because the first read through of the AF, if you're not careful, you can kind of miss this. But the AF is like, the AF's thesis is like, it's like basically not that like we prevent space conflict with Russia, it's that we improve diplomatic relations with Russia when we both go to space together, even if we're like not fighting in space in the original status quo, which means we prevent conflict on land, right? We prevent land conflict by going to space together, by improving diplomatic relations. And similarly for Africa mining, it's not like Africa mining is good or Africa mining is bad, it's like space mining takes away from land mining in Africa, and land mining is key to Africa's economy. So space mining is bad because it takes away from land mining, and land mining is good. So your counterplan doesn't really solve either of those scenarios, which is somewhat difficult for you if this was like a substance-based debate. Now, in terms of like the actual like disclosure thing, basically there's a norm in LD where there's this site. Have you heard of the Wiki? There's a site called the Wiki, if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll put it in the chat. It's hsld.debatecoaches.org. And basically what you're going to want to do after this round or after some other round is you're going to want to go to this wiki, go to this webpage, and you're going to create an account. Most of the time you should be able to log in with you should be able to log in with your Tabroom account. So if you have a Tabroom account, you should be able to log in. And then you're going to scroll down. There should be an option there's a big list of schools, and then right by all the list of schools, there should be an option once you're logged in to click Create School. You're going to create. So basically, what the wiki is it's like a encyclopedia of all of the arguments that everyone has read in their constructive speeches in the past, right? So disclosure is not just I'm reading this argument in this round, so I send it to my opponent before the round so that they can see before my speech, right? That's like one part of it. But another part of it is if I have read this argument before in a round, the moment I read this argument for the first time after the round, I go and I post it on this online site for everyone to see, not just my opponent. And this is kind of like an accepted norm for the most part in LD because of the reasons that the negative has talked about. It leads to better prep. You can like take cards from other people so that not everyone is just recutting the same cards. It leads to more depth of education on the topic because you're not wasting time cutting cards that everyone has already cut before. It leads to better like evidence ethics because if you have someone's case, you can go look for it and make sure that there's no evidence ethic violations, like they're not like making the card say something it doesn't because you have extra time before the round to prep it out. And it leads to more in-depth, high-quality debates. So this is generally an accepted norm. However, not every debater does do this. Some debaters don't disclose, and that's fine if so, but if so, you want to have a counter-interp, and you want to make some arguments as to why you think that disclosure is bad and why you think you shouldn't have to do this. So, yeah, if you need any help with like how to create a wiki, how to disclose anything like that, I can help you. Just send me an email or something, and I'm perfectly happy to help. But basically, the long and short of it is, if you want to just like meet this interp and not have to worry about it, you're going to go to the HSLD wiki. You're going to create a page for your school. You're going to create an AF wiki and a neg wiki. Put your contact info up there so debaters can text you before the round, and then upload your 1AC from all the AF rounds you've debated and your 1NC from all the neg rounds you've debated. You don't need to send anything you haven't read yet. You're new ARG, so you don't have to disclose. And other than that, like, yeah, that's how you won't like violate this show.
Okay. So, yes, thanks. So the question I have is like so am I supposed to like disclose like with my like since like for me to like respond to the 1AC like to write the case section, I need to listen to the 1AC first. So do you want me to like disclose my already like pre-written stuff?
No. So everything that So it's not like it's not like I have a round 4 pairing, I'm going to disclose the speech I'm going to read against them, right? That's not how it is. It's you disclose all of your past speeches. You don't need to disclose args you haven't read yet. So the analytics, you're like, I'm going to change my analytic depending on what the case is. That's fine because it's a new argument. You only need to disclose old arguments. And basically the reasoning behind that is so that the AF, when they're prepping out, when the AF has the 30 minutes between when the pairing is released and the round is released, they can go to your neg wiki and they can try to guess like what arguments you might read. It doesn't give them perfect advantage because, like you said, you can come up with new arguments, but it gives them a little bit of opportunities to actually be doing some prep and making the debate a little more in-depth. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And if you need help like setting up that wiki or something, like we can probably go through it on screen share or something, and I can figure it out, and I can help you figure it out, or just shoot me an email or something. And also, if all else fails, by the way, what you can do before you set up your wiki is go to that wiki, find the school of your opponent before your next round, send them an email saying, and then like you don't have to waste the time setting up the wiki during this tournament. Just like send them an email and be like, here are all my AF cases, here are all my neg cases. I'm new. I haven't made a wiki before. I didn't know I was supposed to. I'll do it after the tournament. And then just like send them all your cases. And if they read disclosure against you, take a screenshot of the fact that you did that and be like, bro, why did you read disclosure against me? I gave you all my cases, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And then that's how you probably won't lose on the rest of the tournament. But other than that, like I thought your arguments were really good. Because is this like your first circuit tournament?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Like I think you were doing really well. So for that, so good job.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone have any questions about like the RFD and stuff?
No.
Yeah, I just want to say about disclosure. Yeah, that was kind of my bad. I didn't realize too well they were novice, but I think if I hit another novice, I probably won't go for it ever.
Yeah, it's fine. And again, like the other thing is like I checked. This is the 0-3 bracket, right? Like, or sorry, no offense, but like this is the.
I think yeah.
Okay. The thing is, if you don't have like if you have breaking stakes on the line and you're like hitting a novice, then like sure, do whatever you need to win, right? But like personally, if you don't, I just think it's a little rude because if you think about it logically, disclosure is not written anywhere, so there's nothing they can do to mean it before the round. They're always going to violate the first round, and then after the first round, sure, they might not violate. But I feel like it's kind of weird to have a norm, even though I agree disclosure is a good norm. I feel like it's kind of weird to have a norm that means that novices are always going to lose at least one round at a tournament, like without fail.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, like if it's like I don't know, if it's like your bubble round or something, then do whatever you need to win. But yeah. All right, good round to both of you. I will send you again. Just let me know if you want me to like take the YouTube video down. I will send you the link, and yeah, and you can like have your novices watch it or something. Good round.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.